Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Sharing Our Pairings. This is Sharing Our Pairings, episode 61, Thorogood and Nomad. I'm your host, John the Cigar Surgeon. We are broadcast on cigarfederation.com, YouTube, podcast, iTunes, everywhere that you can connect to the internet, and many places that you can't. We're, of course, picked up on the Armed Forces Radio Network, heard around the world. Thanks very much for all our Armed Forces Radio Network listeners. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Robbie Rass. Rob, what's going on down in sunny, cloudy, rainy California? What's going on in
No, it's
California?
beautiful, man. It's beautiful. It's actually weed picking day because we had like
Is
a
that a
week.
euphemism?
No, I
Okay.
was actually like literally picking weeds. I think I have grass stains. See?
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, I
no,
just figured California, gotta
who
ask.
knows? Yeah, who knows what it may be harvest weather. I have no idea, but it's been I had to attack my backyard a little bit today, but no, it's beautiful out, and I think the rain might be done, which is unfortunate, but beautiful day to smoke some Nomads. I'm taking this. Want to make sure I get the number right. The lot, the Esteli lot 8613 for a spin. This is the first time I've smoked it, and this first, what is that? About a half inch. First
Yep.
half inch is pretty damn good.
And of course, we're not just by ourselves. We're joined by our repeat, Fred Rui from Nomad Cigars. Fred, what's going on?
Not much. I'm enjoying good weather here too. You're the only one totally bundled up. I'm outside in Florida right now, and it's probably a balmy 78 degrees right now. So trying to tough through it.
Now, of course, the last time I saw you was down in Orlando, and I was expecting it to be warm. And so maybe it's me. Maybe I bring the cold weather, because when I was down in Orlando, I think it was like 48 degrees freedom.
Yeah, it was cold. I think we were outside drinking single malts, and it was cold. Well, at least until the third or fourth single malt. Then it seemed to warm up. Maybe that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, it's probably purely a coincidence. So we, of course, smoking some Nomad cigars. I'm smoking the Nomad Therapy, as you can see. I've got my Therapy shirt. The doctor is, in fact, in. So I'm smoking the Nomad Habano. This is my first time smoking the Habano. I've smoked the Connecticut, and I enjoyed it. Smoked the Maduro, and I enjoyed it. And no surprise, I'm smoking the Habano, and also enjoying it. So tell us a little bit.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Fred, tell us a little bit about, of course, we talked to you about the therapy at the show. Maybe talk to us about the therapy and how that's been doing, and the 8613.
Well, the 8613 came out first. That came out probably I want to say June last year, sometime before the show. That one's done really well. I mean, made a lot of lists. I guess Cigar and Spirits had #2 Reader's Choice Award. Made it for the first round of March Madness over on Cigar Fed, so happy to see that. That was kind of I didn't really have a rustic blend cigar, and I was trying to really focus on the Jalapa, the Ometepe, which I'm a huge fan of, and the Condega Ligero. So that blend really came together. It's also the one that I base what I've been doing some events called Hacking the Blend, and it's a seminar, but I didn't want it to be pretentious because God knows I don't know everything. So what we do is we take the seminar and I provide them 3 small cigars. One is only Jalapa, one is only made out of Condega Ligero, and one's only Ometepe. And they have a chance to smoke each of them individually. And we talk about how to blend a cigar, and I talk about the flavors and how once you get to know them individually, then they get to see how they merge together. We smoke the 8613 with the Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on it, and they can see the wrapper influence and everything else like that. So that's been a great seller for me. It's done really, really well. The Therapy line was something that I was kind of, trying to figure out how to bring the price point down on a cigar, but not make any sacrifices in tobacco. And that's difficult to do because there's a lot of shortcuts you can take. You can go to medium fill and short fill, and I'll admit it. I played with both of them, and I hated both of them. I really was not happy with. There were a couple of medium fills that were okay, but I just didn't like the overall smoking experience. And I know there's some good ones out there, but I didn't care for it personally. So the idea was to, when you leave cigar shops, a lot of times you see all the boxes for sale. That you buy a box for $1. It's an empty box. They've got stacks and stacks of empty boxes. And I went back and looked at it, and I thought, if I put them in a tray, or if I do a tray of some sort, I could save a lot of money on the boxes. And I think in the first run, I saved over $15,000 just in box cost alone.
Wow.
After paying for the trays. So, people look at cigars and they look at it and go, oh gosh, it's $8 for a cigar. But, depending on what state you're in. So, I mean, just to break it down, which everybody, some other manufacturers like, oh, don't do that. But I think people need to know, you're paying, we got to pay 40 cents for every cigar that comes into the country because we have S-chip. You've got band costs, which is roughly a penny, 2 pennies a stick. Then you've got UPCs. Then you got boxes that are going to be anywhere from, 22 cents per cigar all the way up to, as much as maybe, 30, 40 cents, depending on, what your box, or even more in some cases. So all that, is factored into the cost. So I looked at where could I cut, and boxes was the logical step. So I was able to, it sounds cheesy, but kind of pass the price on to the consumer. But I saved a considerable amount, and I actually saved even more because I was able to lower a little bit more because shipping them into the country, the first time I saw the invoice come through with customs and everything and the shipping costs, I'm like, well, that can't be right. It's much lower. Well, I wasn't shipping, thousands of boxes either.
Yeah.
So it worked out well. So the project, when I decided to do a tray, I was really focused. Originally, I was thinking it was only going to be a tray of the Maduro, which is the Pennsylvania broadleaf. And the more I thought about it, I really wanted to provide a tray that was mild, medium, and full. That forced me to revisit the Connecticut, which I was super happy with the Connecticut Fuerte. I think it's one of the best Connecticut's out there. And I'm not saying that as the maker. I'm saying that just as a consumer. But, I blended it, so it's obviously my palate. But to revisit Connecticut anytime soon was not high on my list. And I was struggling with that. And then it was recommended that I looked at some of the San Andreas. So the Connecticut in the therapy line has a San Andreas binder, which got at that sweetness to it a little bit, made it a different type of Connecticut. And so the struggle became the Habano to not make that a throwaway cigar, to fill the line. So some more time went into the Habano, but the Habano came together pretty quickly only because I had the classic line, which is where I started. So that was kind of an easier wheelhouse, a medium stick to kind of blend to. Not a whole lot of drama, but just some nice earthy tones to it. And so when I released it at the show, and I try to keep a minimum of 6 to 9 months of stock in the States of what I think I'm going to sell in the projections, and then I try to keep another 6 months minimum over at the factory so that when I run low here, I move it into the country and go from there. And I think we were all of 35, 45 days out after the launch, and the reorders started hitting so fast that I was dangerously low on the Maduro almost right out of the gate, and I had to accelerate production and get ahead of that curve. And fortunately, we did, but it was close. And I think we actually, and I don't think anybody really realized it, but I think we were really back ordered on the Robusto size of the Maduro for about a week, so it didn't hurt anybody. And I don't like back orders, but it was a good problem to have. And the Maduro probably outsold the other two about 2 to 1. And I don't know if it was because the Maduro was really good, which I think that Pennsylvania broadleaf is excellent, or just that it was the first Maduro Nomad had, and everybody's been waiting around for me to come up with a Maduro. But a year and a half, 2 years ago at the time, I mean, I didn't have the ability to do a Maduro. I just couldn't get my arms around it.
Well, I know in my new gig, being in the cigar industry, I can tell you that any kind of savings that's helps out the B&M owner, because I was looking at some of our stock today doing inventory. And man, oh man, you start to add taxes onto the manufacturer's price, and I mean it adds up very quick. So you can take a cigar that seems really inexpensive and start adding on those taxes, and all of a sudden it becomes a pretty high price point. So I think every little bit definitely counts.
Well, and you got shipping. We didn't talk about shipping, and we didn't talk about the tax. I mean, depending on your state, could be 50 cents. 70 cents goes straight to the government.
Absolutely. So, Rob, before we get to our first break, I'm sure we got a ton of audience questions, which for whatever reason I can't see. So I'm gonna have to rely on you to pull those up. Thanks, Google.
You're at my mercy. Is it snowing there?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I thought I saw some snow falling.
I thought I saw flakes.
Yeah,
Winter is coming, and so is Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
We could get. That's a whole other show. We could go way deep into that. But we were just talking about this. Doing the large box and then selling the refill orders. And when we were talking about it on this show, and I can't remember what cigar it was that we were talking about. I feel like it was just one of our recent shows, John. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it was specifically the therapy.
Was it? Yeah, I'm not sure which one we were talking about, but
yeah, it was specifically the therapy because like Fred was saying, I mean, when you're shipping boxes to again, I can say this now that I'm in the industry. It's great to have a box on display, but if you got one box and the box doesn't change, and you're not constantly having to, because as people pick through the box gets down, you have to take that box off display, put another box. The box while it makes a great end capper, you don't need multiple boxes as a retailer. You only need one box because you're just refilling that box as people come and buy them. And granted, there are people that will buy a full box, but for the people that are buying singles in 5-packs or whatever, you don't need that extra packaging. So yeah, you might as well save the money. And Nomad, passing the savings on to you.
Absolutely. Okay, we got some questions here. We'll jump in. This one's from Trip, and this is a question for you, Fred. And I'm sure you get asked this a lot because the Lot 1386 was such a big hit for you. And I think that was your first limited edition, cigar, I believe, as well, if memory serves. But Trip wants to know if that cigar is ever going to resurface, or maybe a blend or like a different take on it or something along those lines will ever resurface.
The 1386, no, it can't, because the Ligero that I got, which was 2 bundles of it, I went back to try to find again. We identified the farm. We actually looked at the next season of it. It just wasn't the same. The reason I named that the 8613 is that really was my take to go back to a similar blend, and that's probably as close as I'll be able to get. There's less jalapa in the 8613 than there was in the 1386, but that's about as close as I'll really ever be able to get to that blend. And I'd love to do that blend again. It's certainly one of those sought after ones, and I wish I would have come out with that in my career now versus then. But I wish I could make more of it. But I would say the 8613. I mean, if you really smoke them side by side, given the fact the 1386 has a little bit more age to it now. But they are really similar wheelhouse. I'd say that the 8613 has a bit more spice to it, not overwhelmingly so, but it's a little bit more spice than the 1386 had.
It's interesting because I am smoking the 8613 right now, and this was the first time that I noticed that it was 1386 and then 8613. And people say I don't pay attention.
That's why I did it, because it really was my attempt to go back to that blend, but it wasn't the same blend. I would have been lying if I called it 1386.
Sure. I actually like this blend,
which has been done.
Well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I actually like this blend a little bit better.
If I was pressed, I would absolutely say that I like the 8613 better. I think it's a more sophisticated blend than the 1386 was. I don't think that the 1386 was as good as the popularity and the excitement for it retroactively is. I thought it was a good cigar, but it's kind of like when you first start blending, and then I got better and better and better, and I go back and look at it, go, oh, I would have tweaked it. So I probably, even if I had that tobacco today, I would have blended a different cigar probably, just based on what I know. I would have made a more complex cigar out of that tobacco. Whether it would have been better than that one or not, I don't know, but I think the 8613 is a better cigar. But then again, if you can find the 1386, which is pretty rare, they've aged.
Yeah.
You can definitely find it in my humidor, sitting in the bottom, just waiting for me to pop one out. Just a reminder to our audience, you are tuned in to Sharing Our Pairings, episode 61, Thorogood Nomad. Why is it Thorogood? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. We are joined by our guest, Fred Rui of Nomad Cigars. I'm your host, John the Cigar Surgeon, here with my co-host, Robbie Rass, and we're doing some delicious pairing with Nomad Cigars. And, of course, maybe we'll talk a little bit about what we're pairing before we get into the next audience question. So, sure. As per the expression, the song Thorogood from George Thorogood, we're going to start out with a bourbon. And no bourbon would be complete without the Elijah Craig 12 small batch, which I don't know what, it's really sad because this is just such an amazing bourbon and at a price that, frankly, I feel like people should be chasing me from the store when I get it. 47% alcohol. We've talked about Elijah Craig. They're from Heaven Hills. They're under the Heaven Hills umbrella. They do 200 barrels or less when they do the bottling. And it was winner of a 2014 gold medal at the WSMA Spirits Tasting, and it's no wonder because it is outstanding. And I've been kind of cheating while Fred was talking, just kind of sipping away, and got to tell you, I really like it.
You're going with your bourbon first, then?
Well, that's how the song goes.
So that's how we're doing it.
That's the way it is.
We're doing it the way the song goes.
I mean, I'm no songsmith. I'm just following the song.
Now, what's interesting, and I hadn't really noticed this until I looked at the photo that you posted, but you have an older version of that Elijah Craig that's got the age statement.
That's right.
It doesn't have an age statement anymore.
It doesn't, and this is kind of one of the sad things. And we talked about it on Twitter. We talked about it on Facebook. This is something that's really affecting bourbon distilleries and Scotch distilleries. That, and Fred can probably talk about this at length. That the problem with sitting on any product is, whether you've got billions of ducats in the bank, no one wants to sit on a product for 10 or 12 years and not make money. I mean, from a business perspective, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And you can only imagine a distillery who spends millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then you say, okay, well, when can we sell this product? Okay, well, we can sell it 12 years from now. Well, so, as spirit becomes less available, and especially if you're a smaller bourbon distillery, you got to take that age statement away because you got to pay the bills.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been looking. We talked about this with the Zaya as well. I actually found some of that Zaya rum that still has the 12-year age statement on it, and did a side-by-side tasting, and it's like it's not even the same sport, let alone the same ballpark.
Not even the same sport.
Oh, it's unbelievable how different it is. And I think my Bevmo still has a few bottles. I might just go buy them and just stick them in a closet somewhere because the stuff they're coming out with now is crap. But
I mean, it'd be like smoking fresh broadleaf versus the 3-year age broadleaf. I mean, it's totally different.
Yeah, fair enough.
Different.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, there's certainly sacrifices there, though. But I mean, I get it. The guys that I know that have factories and specifically are buying tobacco, they won't they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on tobacco that they won't use for 3 years. You invested real money, and that clock's ticking. But hopefully you eventually get into a rotation where that all works. But when you start talking about single malts and things like that, it's a different it's a totally different product to throw it out earlier. And I would personally pay more for the aged product. Whatever they have to amortize their costs and whatever they need to have on their return, I would pay twice as much for a superior Scotch or bourbon or something like that than I would go to the hey, we just threw it out after a couple of years, because it's not as good of a product.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into the whole Zaya thing because they still have the little stickers on there that say 12, but it says 12 and then it says blended with
yeah.
But it's not an age statement. It's just a sticker with the number 12 on it.
Yeah, because it's cut.
It's totally cut, yeah. It's misleading, but whatever. We'll move forward. So the bourbon that I've decided to go with today is the Woodford Reserve, and
that's a great bourbon.
That's a great bourbon.
This is one of kind of my go-tos, and I brought a bottle down to New Orleans for IPCPR, and I remember before we left, I went to Safeway to pick up a bottle, and I was just going to get like Basil Hayden's or something like that, and Safeway had bottles of this Woodford Reserve for $26.
Oh wow!
And it's regularly like $49, so I could kind of kick myself for not buying more than one. But anyway, so that's what I'm going with today. Woodford Reserve, a little bit of info on the distillery, Woodford Reserve Distillery in Kentucky. Been around since 1812. That doesn't seem right. But
could be.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at their website here. They've got a lot of information. Actually, looking at the building, yeah, maybe it has been around that long. Pretty sweet, though. Some info on the bourbon itself. John, you're so much better at this than I am because you actually, you prepare.
I race home and I'm just, typing away. I'm like, I got to get my information in. That's how I roll.
Yeah. And all of our listeners appreciate it. And I like to make them do some work. I mean, if you want to know a little bit more about Woodford Reserve, and I feel like we may have featured this on the show before, but 45% alcohol by volume. That's Freedom gallons there, John. And the appearance... it's 90.4 proof. So what is that? That's just over 45, right?
I don't know how to convert my Freedom proof to.
Well, you just cut it in half.
You just cut it in half.
Is that how you do it? Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Divided by 2. Pretty simple.
We don't have metric, but we have it real simple when we do the proofing.
I can't tell you what a liter is, but you just cut this in half. This thing wins like every freaking award. They've got a page dedicated, excuse me, to the awards that this has won. The flavors, it's kind of rich and chewy, rounded and smooth, blah, 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 all those flowery words. I have a feeling that this pairing is going to go really, really nicely. After I looked at John's review of the 8613, I feel like I was strategic in my pairings today, so I'm excited to get started. And the problem is I poured both of my my whiskey and my scotch, and I didn't really mark which one's which. So
Uh-oh.
I'm sure
Now you're really going to be tested.
I can figure it out, but you're going to have to talk while I do that.
No problem. So before we get into our next question, I'll just say that this is a pairing made in heaven, and it makes sense to me. And when I was looking at the different Nomads I had, and I was like, which one should I go with? And I was thinking, the Habano is going to be a really nice middle of the road everyman pairing, and I got to tell you, with the bourbon, outstanding. You get a little bit of the pepper, a little bit of the sweetness. It doesn't run over the Habano. It still lets the cigar do its thing, and absolutely fantastic together.
Fred, what do you like to pair these two cigars with?
Well, actually, you're pairing yours with what I usually have with the 8613 lately.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Oban, have been for a long time. John and I talked about that. I think when we were down here, that's a good go-to to me. Been really hooked on the Glenmorangie La Quinta lately. Someone turned me on to that about a year ago, and I think that one's really, really good. I've just started to get into the bourbons. I think I've said before, and probably on this show, that I wasn't a bourbon drinker. I was only pretty much single malt, and then I just found out that I just don't like cheap bourbon. So some of my you guys know in the cigar industry, a lot of guys into the bourbons and stuff like that. I think single malt drinkers will go to bourbon. I think we have trouble going to whiskey. It's that, to me, that's just a real different world. The bourbons, and particularly the better aged bourbons, the ones that are better done, I've been real happy with. So I'm starting to get into the bourbons a little bit more, but still predominantly single malt.
I was this close to picking Oban as my scotch, but I feel like I've had Oban way too many times on the show. So
it's a great all around. I mean, it goes with
beautiful.
just about anything. It really is. It really is good.
It's got some peat in there, but not too much. It's just kind of enough to bring you around. It's a nice gateway too to get into those peatier scotches, which John can talk much more eloquently about than I can.
Well, the thing about the Glenmorangie, and it's a great product, and then it's always nice to pick up a product and you look at it, and the price is just ridiculously affordable. Like, you can get the Glenmorangie for $30 or $40 cheaper than other bottles, and I'll be honest, there's lots of bottles that are $30 or $40 more that are not better than the Glenmorangie by far.
Yeah.
The La Santa.
Yeah.
That's the one that I like, the Glenmorangie La Santa.
Have you had the La Quinta, which is what, the port casks? Is that right? That's outstanding.
I haven't tried that one.
I like it better than La Santa, but I mean, they're both good, but I like the La Quinta better. And like you said, for the price point, you can't beat the price point on that. I mean, when I used to buy Oban, though, I mean, I'm old, but I mean, I remember getting it for half of what it is now. I mean, at first, really, honestly, it was the affordable one, and now it's pretty much up there with the other ones. But when you're talking, Glenmorangie, either La Santa or La Quinta at half the price, you're right. I mean, I think they're easily could be more, and I'd still be happy.
Yeah, they're just about half the price. Check out Costco if you have a Costco out there.
We do.
Costco. The last bottle of Oban I bought at Costco was $49.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's good.
And then I got a bottle
1990s pricing.
And I got a bottle of the Lagavulin 16 at $55. But the Lagavulin,
that's a good one.
That's like half price too. But good. The Lag is now $75 at Costco. John, I was going to pick up a bottle for you, and I went to check. It's $75 now. So
yeah, that's not a good deal.
Yeah,
you were worth $45, but you weren't worth $75.
Oh, he's paying for it. He's paying for it. It's not this. Well, although I probably should buy him a bottle. But anyway, let's get into these pairings though, because this pairing for me, it works out exactly how I wanted it to, and the cigar kind of tastes exactly how I thought in my head. You talked about it being a more rustic blend. I think it's almost kind of an elegant blend of rustic flavors. Maybe take it a little bit too far, maybe too much hyperbole there, but there's really nice earthy tones, or a nice kind of a minor sweetness. I don't know how else to describe it. That's in there, and there's some of that chewiness that those two flavors combine to get nice spice on the tongue. The retrohale. I'm getting towards the middle portion here, so the spice is dying down a little bit, but like you said, it is a little bit spicier up front. But I liked it in this cigar. Normally, if a cigar gets too spicy for me, that's a quick way to turn me off to a blend. But it worked so well with those kind of leathery, earthy notes that are in there and that sweetness that it all balanced out really nicely. And bringing in this bourbon, which actually now tastes really sweet. Normally, I don't find this to be a particularly sweet bourbon, but the sweetness from that bourbon's playing really, really nice. Some vanilla notes in there that are coming out. That's playing really, really nicely with that kind of rustic profile and some spice. So off to a good start so far. John, how's yours?
Yeah, this, I mean, for an uncomplicated pairing, this is, if somebody's looking to start pairing, this is just an easy pairing. I don't know how the no age statement Elijah Craig is, but the 12 and this cigar, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, I could sit down and crush this cigar and crush this bourbon, and I'd be happy all day long. I mean, the bourbon is not going to break the bank in terms of complexity, but it's easy. It works. It works very, very well.
Robbie, to your point, I mean, when you talked about the spice, I'm not a huge fan of spice. And if you're going to have spice in a cigar, to me, there's got to be an offset. There's got to be a complement to it. Mm-hmm. I was not a huge fan of Nicaraguan tobacco initially because between Honduras and Nicaragua, when they first started coming out as a consumer, long before I ever started making cigars, they were spice bombs. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's just like, man, we're going to look at all this spice. And I was totally turned off of that. It wasn't until you got some better blenders over there, or the blenders that were there started to go, you know what, maybe it doesn't need to be the dominant part of the cigar. Let's make it an accent. And to me, what pairs very well, and the two cigars that I think pair best in my portfolio with what we're talking about drinking tonight, the 8613 does, and the C276 does quite a bit. And I think the reason is it's the Ometepe really plays off the flavors in both single malt and bourbons quite a bit. I can't speak to whiskeys because that's not my wheelhouse, but for some reason the Ometepe, when well blended, it's just such a unique tobacco. It's fairly scarce, it's very expensive, so it's just not used a lot. But when you start talking about pairings, man, that is a magic tobacco to have a Nicaraguan cigar for me personally.
It's funny, man. You mentioned my two favorite blends that you produce. And I'm starting to think that this 8613 might be, if not equal to the 276 as far as how much I'm enjoying it, this might even be a little bit higher on my list. This is a real nice blend, and
they're different. They're different.
Yeah,
the 276, if you're not having a pairing with it, the 276 is a much more complex blend. There's 6 different tobaccos in the filler. Ometepe's in there, but both Condega and Esteli Ligero, much more complex on its own right. It's kind of its own meal.
It's a stronger cigar. Yeah.
It's definitely a stronger cigar.
Yeah.
But it's more of its own meal and its own thing that, like, if I can't have a drink, or if I'm not having a drink but I had a steak dinner or something, I want something like that, so a more mature smoke. That's it. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm probably more inclined to go for the 8613, unless I just really want something that's very complex, very smooth.
What's the price point on these?
Everything I have in the portfolio is under $10. So the 8613 is actually usually about $7.95 to $8.50, depending on where you are. It depends on the tax in the states and things like that.
Sure.
276 I think runs about 20% or 20 cents higher, depending on where you are. But that was a pretty complex blend. As much as 50 cents more maybe, but certainly, I mean, the tobacco that's in there justified it.
Yeah. I'm digging this. I'm digging this so far. We're off to a good start, and I have a feeling that it's just going to keep getting better here.
Absolutely.
I can't believe you haven't had one yet.
Haven't had one. What?
You haven't had an 8613 yet. I can't believe that.
Yeah, this is my first one. Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. I
don't know. I was saying to Robbie offline that I'm going to have to revisit the 8613 because the one I just reviewed was the first one I've had, which is very unusual for me because the 276 is almost in my regular rotation. Like, that's, if I'm not sure what to smoke, I'll grab the 276 because it's just so good. Before we get into our next pairing here, Robbie, you want to hit up another audience question?
I guess.
Oh, you don't have to.
Let's see. Well, actually, we just did one, really, without asking it. Okay, so here's one from Trip, and it's kind of maybe a specific question, but it's in reference to those seminars that you were talking about earlier. And Trip is curious if you're going to get out to the Northwest this year, or is there somewhere maybe where you have like a list of dates and event times?
I got to do a better job about putting them on the website. I know I'm going to the Northwest, and I want to say it's right before July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be out there for a couple of weeks, so I'll definitely be in that area. I don't know where Trip is specifically, but I know that I'll be probably hitting like Portland, Seattle. I know I'm in Spokane, Washington for a couple events. So yeah, matter of fact, I'm doing a hellacious road trip that'll include driving out there. So yeah, I definitely Northwest is definitely on the radar. And like I said, I think it's end of June, early July for several weeks.
Awesome. Awesome. There you go, Trip. Yeah, Trip is in Portland or just outside of Portland, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, he'll find you. Absolutely. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Okay, so this is kind of a question for the group here from Jason Myers. He says, what's your go-to moderately priced bourbon? He says, I'd love to drink Blanton's all day long, but I'm married. And it's funny, man. He said Blanton's, and that's I don't know what moderately priced. It's different. It's subjective, for everybody. That was the first thing I thought of was Blanton's because, like he said, I could drink Blanton's all day, every day. If
How much is Blanton's?
I think it runs around $49, $50, which to me is kind of it's not an everyday bourbon by any means, but for my house, we have kind of a well bourbon, if you will, and right now our well bourbon is the it switches, it goes back and forth. Right now it's the Elijah Craig single barrel or single whatever small batch or whatever it is.
Small batch.
Yeah. The $24.99 one. We kind of switch between that and Bullet. Bullet's a little bit spicier, I think, but for the amount of money that you're spending on the bottle, it's hard to beat that Elijah Craig. That
would have been my vote actually. I would have said the Elijah Craig. It's roughly like here. It's rough. I want to say it's almost half the price of what he's talking about, and I think for the money, I mean it's same reason we look at Glenmorangie on the single malts versus. Or not single malt, excuse me, but Glenmorangie versus the Oban or whatever. Not a huge sacrifice for half the price.
Yeah, and you could
John,
even
this is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys kind of hit on the three base bourbons that I switch between. The Elijah Craig is kind of the budget everyday bourbon, and it doesn't taste like the budget everyday bourbon. The Woodford Reserve is, if I'm looking to break out I don't want to say top shelf, but the Woodford Reserve is a little bit more rich. It's got a lot more to it. And then the Bullet, like Rob was saying, it is a spicier bourbon, and there's lots of cigars. If I'm pairing with something like Maduro or even a broadleaf, or actually, even a San Andrés Maduro, because the San Andrés Maduro has that sweetness, and the Bullet kind of offsets that with the pepper, and they go really nice together. And all of them, we talk about spirit pricing. I mean, all of these are, $45 sub, which, if you don't want to spend, if you're not like crazy like me and you hate money and you don't want to spend tons and tons of money on Scotch whiskey, bourbon is an easy thing to get into. Although, don't get crazy because you can spend a lot of money on bourbon.
And he is married.
And he is married, yeah, absolutely. And those two that we were talking about, Bullet and Elijah Craig, are like half that price. They come in around $25, give or take. Another one to throw into that list is Eagle Rare 10 for the price.
I like that one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, just based on the reaction from the group, I think that's like $29, maybe $30. So those are some good places to start. I feel like you get some more flavor than if you're going to buy like a bottle of Jack or something, and you're not spending that much more. So
yeah.
I think those are some good ways to go. If if you're listening on Cigar Federation and you've got some other ideas, we've got a forum. Go ahead and post it up in the forum and let us know, and we can start a nice little conversation there.
Jeff in the chat room just mentioned one that I feel embarrassed that we didn't mention was Knob Creek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's closer to that $40, $45 range, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of in the Woodford Reserve range. I mean, Knob Creek, again, I'd say it kind of splits the difference between Woodford and Bullet. It's a little spicy, but not as spicy as the Bullet. The Bullet's got a lot of spicy bite to it, if you like that.
Bullet's too spicy for me. It's more than I want. It's more than I want. And I can't say that I go to Knob Creek very often as well. I mean, when looking at a selection of them, that's not one that I mean, it's a good one. It's just not when we're talking about the other ones. It's not my first go-to.
Yeah, and you could even throw Buffalo Trace in there too. But I mean, for me, if the closer we get to $40, I'm dropping the extra 5 or 6, and I'm getting Blanton's.
That's fair.
So yeah, I'm trying to go for something in that $20, $25 range. So I think those work out pretty well.
So breaking into our second pairing here.
Absolutely.
I am going, as the song goes. Now it's time for the Scotch, and this is something I don't even know if you had a chance to try this, Fred. This is Edgedoor, and this is
I don't think I have.
this was, and you can see it's got the UK stamp on it. This came with me in my luggage back from Scotland, and they are marked as Scotland's smallest distillery. And to give you a sense of just how small they are, they produce 90,000 liters per year. That is just under 24,000 Freedom gallons. I mean, that is very, very small.
Don't you drink that much in a year yourself?
Well,
that's like your own personal production.
That's my personal production, but it's spread among multiple distilleries. I don't tap one distillery because that wouldn't be fair to everyone else.
Yeah, it's not good for the economy. Yeah.
No, you got to spread out the love. Edgedoor founded in 1837, although they had an illicit farm distillery going since 1825. The Brits didn't know about, kind of under the radar. Being that they're such a small distillery, of course, they only run one wash, one spirit still, so very, very small with that production level. Water source is the Moulin Moor, and they're considered a Midlands or Southern Highlands distillery, so because from middle Scotland. And this is a monster. This is only a 10-year, but this is a 10-year cask strength, and we've talked about this on the show before. Cask strength whiskeys impart a lot more flavor than something that's been brought down to 40-43%. So this is 57.4%, and if you were to smell this, you would not put this at 57%. This is like heather and fresh fruit, like a melon fruit. It's very, very light on the nose, and as Rob talks about his second palate, I'm going to take some sips and roll my eyes in the background here.
John totally prepares for this show.
Yeah, he does not mess around. And
wow.
And it really.
Hey, what do you got, Robbie?
Yeah, yeah. It really kind of puts me on Front Street because I don't. But I mean, it depends on what we're talking about. This is a Scotch. It's a blended Scotch. But we talked about it on the show before. Tripp was asking a lot of questions, and Tripp and I kind of single-handedly crushed a bottle of this at Cigar Safari last year, not this past one. It's the Johnny Walker Explorers Club Collection, the Spiced Road. And this one is one of those duty-free onlys, and we had a bottle of it in Nicaragua, and like I said, Tripp and I went head over heels on it. And so I picked up a bottle on my way home, and I've been nursing it a little bit. This bottle's got about a little over a year on it, and it's still, there's still a fair amount in there. It's one of those ones that kind of gets stuck in the back of my bar, and I kind of forget that I have it. And then I remember, and I rage on it for a few days, and then my wife will put it in the back again, and I'll forget. But they don't give you too much information. I'm not going to tell you guys about Johnny Walker. You guys know who Johnny Walker is. Well, you might not know who Johnny Walker is, but you've heard of Johnny Walker. The Spiced Road, it's a lively contemporary blend. And it recalls the vibrant colors and heady aromas of the spice markets along the ancient trade routes through Persia, India, and China. Routes taken by the agents of Johnny Walker and Sons as they traveled the globe. The blend is exclusively available to travelers through duty-free stores. And I want to say this was $35-40 when I bought it. And well worth the purchase if you're ever in a position to pick up some stuff from some duty-free. It's a blend. It's got some nice sweetness to it. The nose is really nice on it. But there's a little bit of spice in there, and it's not overly spicy as the name might make you think that it is. But it is quite tasty, and I'm excited to see how this is. John, that Scotch that you're pouring there is really, really light in color.
Yeah, very light. Look at the. I mean, it is extremely light, like golden hay.
Yeah, and you said it was cask strength.
This is cask strength, and this is one of those cask strength whiskeys that just creeps up on you because you nose it, and you're like, yeah, this is probably at 46%. You would never have any clue, and even sipping it, it does not present like a 57% whiskey.
What I did not mention about the Spice Road is the Freedom Gallons alcohol by volume, and it's 40%, so this is a little bit lower. Definitely lower than what you're messing with, John, but lower than where I was with the Woodford Reserve as well. So we'll see how that stands up in a pairing.
I did a vertical of all the Johnny Walkers across all the way up to the I can't remember the name of it. It's like the Queen's Highland, which goes for like $5,000 a bottle or something like that. And honestly, that Explorers Club, unbelievable buy for the money. And if I'm going to drink a Johnny Walker, it's going to be the Johnny Walker Green. My second choice would probably be the blue, but that Explorers, if you can get your hands on it, it's a really good buy. The money aside, it's actually a pretty good blended whiskey. Talking about this Edgeador, it has just got this wonderful syrupy, rich palate to it. It doesn't burn. You don't get a lot of that big alcohol burn that you would expect, anything above 50%. Lots of sweetness, but not rich sweetness. So it's not overpowering the palate, and it's a completely different tasting experience than the initial bourbon that I had, because the bourbon had a little bit of spice to it. It's very sort of corn forward, where you get a lot more rich sweetness that's very strong. And this is very light, and this, I think, complements the cigar a lot more. So, we talk about contrasting versus complementary, and this is complementing the cigar a lot more than the bourbon was. This is a heck. I can't believe I haven't poured this. I don't know the last time I poured this. I might have to bring some samples of this down to the IPCPR for some private tastings.
I think that would be good. Now, let me ask you a question, John. In retrospect, if you weren't following the song, would it have been better to reverse those two?
Absolutely, because and this is always the tough thing when we're doing the show is, it's not like I've sat down and done a bunch of research in advance of the show. Even at 57%, this is so light, it's so delicate, and that's such a strange thing to say about a cask strength whiskey. But it is just so light and so delicate that this should be the first tasting of the night, not the second tasting of the night. But it definitely stands on its own even after having that bourbon.
Gotcha.
I actually was planning on doing these the exact opposite order. But it's weird to me, like when we do shows where we have a spirit and a beer, which one to go with first. I mean,
Yeah.
my mind says go with the beer first. But
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of it's been our experience that maybe that's not always the best way to go. So
Interesting.
yeah, it is a little bit strange. Question here. We'll jump into a question. We've still got about 15 minutes, right, John?
You betcha.
Okay. Question here from Douglas Shepard. And Doug wants to know, is it taboo to drink your whiskeys from a shot glass instead of those fancy glasses? Now, by fancy glasses, he's talking about these Glencairn, right? Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, Glencairn.
I had to look at the little label on the bottom because there's so many Glens, and I wanted to make
There's
sure
a lot of Glens.
I make sure I picked the right Glen. We've talked about the Glencairn glasses. The funny thing is, you can get them for about the same price as a shot glass. So Doug, you can step up your game pretty easily. But drink however you want to drink. I don't think there's any correct or wrong. I mean, there's a wrong way to drink, like straight out of the bottle or whatever, but or pour it on the floor and lick it up. That's not, you don't really want to do that. But I think you just do whatever makes you happy. But I know, John, you can talk about the real reason to drink out of a Glencairn glass.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to enhance, because really what the purpose of the glassware, beyond showing, and I apologize for the wind because it's really picking up here, but if you want to enhance the spirit you're going with, like Robbie was saying, it doesn't cost you that much to get a bunch of Glencairns, and it really does enhance the taste experience. And I'm kind of a try it before I believe anyone else kind of guy. So I have done a number of tastings with a number of different glasses, and I kind of thought the whole thing was kind of malarkey. And then I tried it, and sure enough, the Glencairn does impart a significantly enhanced flavor to whatever you're drinking, whether that's bourbon, whether that's even port. If you drink it in a nice copita, something about the shape of the glass just gets your nose involved in that tasting experience, and the nose is 80-85% of what you're actually tasting. So when you're engaging your nose, you're going to get a lot more out of that spirit. And if you're spending 50, 60, 70 bucks on a bottle, I mean, having a $10 glass is probably the way to go.
Yeah, it's almost
I know that. I mean, I think it makes a big difference. I think that the surface area, in relation to the nose, makes a big difference. And for the price of the glass, I mean, $10. Rydell has some glasses that are fairly close knockoffs that are probably even cheaper. You can find it even Costco around Christmas. They do little gift sets and stuff like that. But I have found versus a shot glass that it does change the experience. And I was with John, same thing. I mean, in the beginning, I'm like, okay, come on, really? Do I need to have this snobby looking fancy glass? But it does, and I think it's by virtue of increasing the surface area of it when you smell it and you go to take a drink. I think it makes a difference, and if it doesn't, I sure believe that it does, So
to me, it's almost akin to smoking a cigar, and then when you retrohale for the first time, you start getting that extra flavor that you're like, wow, I've been missing this for so long. But with that being said, on a regular Friday, if I'm having, I decide, I want, a couple fingers of scotch. Am I grabbing my Glencairn glasses? Probably not. I usually just grab whatever is. I've got a couple of glasses that I tend to drink out of because they're glasses that I like and I like to drink out of them. So
I
it does
would
not.
rather I would rather put it in a rocks glass than I would a shot glass.
Absolutely.
Just to increase
Absolutely.
that surface area.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just for reference, just pulled up on on Amazon here, and you can get a whiskey glass set of Glencairn, 4 glasses for $26.39 with free shipping.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
Forget
go.
about it.
So yeah, I mean
There you go.
it's kind of hard to beat that, $5 or $6 a glass. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for the question.
So getting back to this pairing, I think what's interesting about this second pairing for me, and I don't know whether it's the cigar or the pairing, but at the halfway point of the Habano, and I'm getting a lot of chocolate. It's actually reminding me of that like chocolate bark where you get a little bit of the saltiness in the chocolate. That's what I'm getting out of the cigar now, and then I get this from the whiskey. I get this sort of trailing bit of fruit sweetness, and this is a significantly higher quality pairing than the first one for sure, at least in terms of what I'm getting out of the cigar.
For this Spice Road here, the pairing is okay, and if I were to sit down and have this pairing, I'd be totally fine with it. The pairing with Woodford Reserve was damn near perfect, so it's kind of tough to follow that up. It's okay. It's not great. I don't feel like it's doing anything special for the cigar. I don't feel like it's doing anything special for the whiskey itself. There is some kind of a nice rounded citrus notes that I'm getting out of this whiskey that I don't normally get. That are bringing out interesting flavors in the cigar. I don't know if it's a positive or not, but it's okay. I think that if I was going to pair this, I think that, Fred, like you were saying with the Oban, something like that might have a little bit more of a peat influence to it, especially with this 8613, I think would be a much better pairing than something like this. Or even if you wanted to stick with Johnny Walker, like just a Johnny Walker Black or the Double Black.
I was going to say the black. I have experience on the black. I haven't had the rum you're talking about. I've had it with the black, and I like the black with it. To me, you have the complementary versus contrastive. When you start talking about spice, contrasting spice sometimes doesn't work out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And getting that Woodford Reserve had that nice kind of oaky sweetness to it, those vanilla notes and things like that. I'm not getting that from the Spice Road at all, and I think that was what really made that pairing nice. Not bad. I'm not mad about it, but I mean, rarely I'm mad about it. I mean, what am I talking about? I'm drinking some whiskey and smoking a cigar. Is that much to be mad about? But I got to go with that Woodford Reserve, hands down so far. You want to jump into number 3 here?
I do. So as much as I've enjoyed the Cedrador, and I really have enjoyed it, I'm definitely going to have to bring this down. In honor of Fred, I've got the Hair of the Dog, the Fred Golden Special.
Fred Golden Special.
Fred Golden Special. Sounds a little weird when I say it like that. So this ale is brewed by Hair of the Dog at Brouwerij de Moulin. It's created to honor beer writer and historian Fred Eckhart. This is a golden strong ale, and I didn't actually look at the ABV before I bought it, and I picked it up after the fact. It's 10%, which for an ale, that's a heater. I mean, that's usually stout category for me. 65 IBUs, which you kind of see that a lot with the 9%, 9.5%. You tend to see the IBUs step up. This was brewed in July of 2015. They brew it with Pilsner, rye, and Belgian candy sugar, which sounds really interesting to me. So this is a distillery, or a brewery, I should say, founded in 1993 in Portland, Oregon. There's a lot of great breweries in Oregon. I keep talking distilleries because I'm in the Scotch mindset. And they say that what's kind of interesting is 99% of the ingredients that they use in their beers are sourced within a 350-mile radius of the brewery, which, I don't know if that's good or not, but it seems kind of cool. And, I'll just hold up the beer here. It definitely looks like that's a nice dark ale. It's got some floaties in it. I don't know what that's all about. That's probably just the character of the beer, but I'm excited to try this.
A lot of your craft beer is going to have those floaties in it there, John. That's what happens when you're bottle conditioned.
Oh, this is outstanding.
Yeah, I went with a pairing that I'm not sure I'm going to be happy about. With a company that we've featured several times on the show, And the more that I explore their line, the more I realize that they are really hit or miss for me. And that's Dogfish Head Brewing. And I went with the India Brown Ale, beg your pardon, Indian Brown Ale. And I wanted to go with the brown ale, but I don't have a lot of brown ales except for the one that I brewed myself, and I didn't want to talk about that too much because it was my first batch and it wasn't very good. But I wanted a brown ale to go with this cigar specifically because I wanted to get some sweetness out of it, but I didn't want to go over the top with, with like a stout or something to that effect. So the India Brown Ale, had I looked a little bit more into it, this is the first time I've had it, I probably would have chosen something else, because this is actually a hybrid between a Scotch ale and an IPA. It's so they call it, and an American brown. So there's a severe hybrid action going on here. There's Scotch ale mixed with an American brown, and they dry hop it in a similar fashion to they dry hop their 60 and 90 minute IPAs. So
That sounds pretty funky.
yeah, and I think that I would like this on its own because it is kind of funky and it's going to have some of those sweet notes, but it's also going to have some of that hop characteristic, which on the surface sounds kind of gross, but I think it could be pretty good if I was drinking it on its own. My palate needs to kind of come around and get off the spirits here to get into the beer, so I'm going to take a few more sips. But we've talked about Dogfish Head. They've been around for a while, and they've got some really cool stuff. But Indian Brown Ale, 50 IBUs, so it's got a bit more of a bitterness factor to it than I was looking for, actually. And again, I wasn't paying attention. 7.2%, so it's got a little bit, it's got teeth to it as well. Available year-round. It's one of their kind of standard releases. And their tasting notes, and there's one that sticks out in here, and you'll catch it as I read it, because it's like one of these things. It's not like the others. Molasses, coffee, chocolate, raisinets, and ginger. Which one doesn't fit?
Yeah, ginger's
yeah.
funky.
Oh, we lost Fred.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back.
Yeah, he'll pop back in. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Get a look. It's got a nice little head on it, nice head retention, because I poured this a minute ago. It looks significantly darker. It looks a lot darker than it is. It's more of I can't really get it in the light. It's not. I mean, it's kind of a deep red. I mean,
Almost like a beet color.
Yeah, you can see through it. It's a deep brownish red, so it's not quite as dark as it looks on camera.
So talking about this pairing, it's interesting to go the vertical because all three beverages have tasted very, very different. This Hair of the Dog Red, very rich, and it's funny you talk about Scotch ales because this is almost approaching a Scotch ale, but without that. Scotch ale kind of has an initial sweetness and then a little. I find like a little bit of almost astringent bitterness afterwards. And this is just really in-your-face sweet, which is quite surprising. But what's interesting is it works with the cigar. And so I was talking about, getting some chocolate and a little bit of saltiness out of the cigar. And now what I'm getting out of the cigar is a toasted nuttiness and almost a little bit of hay. So I think whatever chocolate sweetness that was in the cigar is getting completely run over by the beer, but bringing out different flavor characteristics out of the cigar, which is kind of part of the fun.
After having taken a few nice sips of this, and I mean, look at the lacing on that. I mean, this is a quality beer. This is well-made beer. I'm getting more of those brown ale notes that I wanted. Some of that roasted coffee and some nutty notes in there and some sweetness, and that's what I wanted. I can still get that hop characteristic, but it's more on the finish, and the pairing is coming around. It's that sweetness from the beer is going nicely with kind of the leathery characteristics of the cigar. The spice is starting to ramp back up again. Excuse me, as I get through kind of towards the end of the middle portion here, heading into the final third. That spice is starting to kick back up again, so this sweetness is really kind of balancing that out. And it's turning into a nice little pairing. I'm hoping, how much time do we have left? A couple minutes?
We're down to about a minute and a half.
Oh, okay, so we're just about done. So I'll just go ahead and say that my favorite pairing, bar none, is that Woodford Reserve. And if you got a chance to pick up one of these 8613s, I imagine the SigFed store has it. I'm not sure. But you can... Fred, do you have a listing of retailers on your website? Oh, we lost Fred again. So hopefully we can get some of that information from Fred pretty soon. But look for this one at your local B&M or I think the SigFed store has it, or anybody that you buy from online will probably be able to get their hands on it. This is a really good cigar, man. I think you need to revisit it, John.
Yeah, I definitely need to revisit it because I don't know that I was getting the full. I mean, reading the notes and the cigar, the tobaccos that go into it, I don't think I was getting what I was expecting to get out of the cigar. So that's definitely going to be a Redux review for me. Talking about my favorite pairing of the night, Edgador, hands down. I think Glenmorangie would be the to go with something a little bit more available. Anything from Glenmorangie would go fantastically with this Habano cigar. Because I think it complements the cigar a little bit better. It's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more nuanced, and it's gonna complement the cigar a lot more. So that kind of takes us to the end of our Armed Forces Radio Network segment here, and just a reminder to our audience that, and first of all, thanks to our Armed Forces Radio Network listeners out there. Getting off my game here because I'm getting blown away by the wind that's coming in. I want to thank all of our Armed Forces Radio Network listeners, of course, all our live listeners, all our podcast listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again next week on Wednesday. I think we've got our Cigar Chat show back again on Thursday next week. Thanks very much, Fred, for being here for our Armed Forces Radio Network segment. It was good times. We always enjoy having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So as we always say on Sharing Our Pairings, we want you to drink better, but drink less. All right, so we're still live.
Boom.
And Fred, you're welcome to stick around. I know you're losing some light there, so you're welcome to stick around as long as you want, or drop off whenever you want.
I look better when it gets darker, so we're good.
That's kind of creepy coming from the guy
Have
sitting
you
in the dark.
have you successfully paired IPAs with cigars? Because that's something I've never been able to. I like IPAs on their own. I can't do them with cigars.
It's funny, man. We did Drew Estate did that Smoking Monk line of cigars that are blended specifically for IPAs or for beers in general. And the IPA show that we did was the one that John and I were both dreading, and we talked about this. That ended up being one of the best shows. Yeah. And we have since then we did a fire-cured NIPA show, right, John?
That's right.
Yeah, and that fire-cured tobacco with that kind of smoky, salty flavor that you get from that pairs really nicely with an IPA. Oddly enough.
I could see that.
Yeah, it did work out a little bit.
Yeah, I think the fire-cured tobacco is just so in your face that.
And just to kind of revisit, and I kind of wish I could have said this during the AFRN segment. This pairing is coming around for me with the Indian brown ale from Dogfish Head. I'm getting all those notes that I wanted from the brown ale. Like I was saying, that coffee, that kind of almost like a brown sugar sweetness is in there. And it's pairing really, really nicely. It's bringing out some nutty notes in the cigar that weren't there before. I'm getting a lot of that on the retrohale. And it's a very different experience from what I was having with the Woodford Reserve. Not quite as good, but probably my second favorite of the night. So sometimes when you're pairing something, I guess the moral of this story is give it a minute. Get through a few sips of whatever it is that you're trying to pair with it before you decide if it's good or if it's bad. That's my one to grow on there.
And I mean, certainly, I think in a normal pairing experience, you wouldn't try to go through 3 radically different beverages because it's really, I mean, you're shocking your palate. I mean, even when you do a whiskey vertical that's from the same distillery or a brew vertical from the same brewery, it's really, really tough for your palate to go from one beverage to the other. And the way that we pair is not an ideal way to pair, but we like to bring a couple different beverages to the table, and obviously we had a theme for the show. But it gives our audience a chance to kind of see what different beverages quickly pair with a different cigar. Again, Edgador in this cigar was out of this world. Absolutely fantastic.
All right, so we've got a bunch of audience questions. I'm going to go rapid fire. You guys good?
Boom.
All right, this one's from Bob Dog, and it's for the group, and I'll answer first so you guys get a chance to think about it. So this question is for everyone. He says, right now, what is your favorite bourbon, scotch, and beer? So right across the whole thing, which ones are your favorite? For me, my favorite beer right now, John, you just had it the other day, is the Death by Coconut from Oscar Blues. I just cannot get enough of it. Although I recently had a coffee stout from Modern Times called City of the Dead. And it's only available in 22-ounce bombers. But it's a coffee stout and they barrel age their coffee beans. Which, John, I've been wanting to talk to you about this. They barrel age the coffee beans in bourbon barrels. So it's not a bourbon barrel aged stout, but the coffee beans are barrel aged. And you get a little bit of that. There's this minor hint, and it might be placebo or suggestion that I was picking it up, but my wife was picking that up too when we were drinking it. I found some. Modern Times is in San Diego, but they don't really distribute into my area. And I'd have to drive into San Francisco to get it. But I found a couple of places in Southern California that ship at a very reasonable price, and I picked up 2 bottles, and it was so good that I went back to get more. And then they made it so it was only 1 bottle per customer. And then I found a place in San Francisco that ships to me very, very cheaply. It's cheaper than going over there. And I picked up 3 more bottles because I really, really like that beer. So those are probably my 2 favorite beers right now. Favorite Scotch, Lag 16. I can't stop. And I went through that bottle that we split, John. I bought another bottle at Costco, and I went through that, and my wife got me another bottle for Christmas, which I just took out of the box. So it sounds like I have a drinking problem, but that Lag 16 I can't get enough of. And when we're going to talk bourbon, this is where I'm going to get really, really snooty. And I was lucky enough to get my hands on a bottle of Pappy 20-year-old, and that's my favorite bourbon right now. I have to talk myself out of drinking it every day. So that would be my answer. What about you, John?
Well, I think for bourbon, the Elijah Craig 12 small batch is kind of my go-to bourbon. And for the money, I don't think there's a better bourbon at that price point, and so it's kind of my go-to. For Scotch, I'm going to throw a curveball here. My local supplier, Kensington Wine Market, they do what a lot of cool stores do is they buy casks. And I was at a tasting for a Ren, and they have a cask from 2003. It's an 18-year-old single cask, and it's exclusive to their shop. It wasn't that bad. It was $135 Canadian. It's the oldest bottling that Iran has ever done, because the distillery was only established in 1995. So this is essentially distilled in 1996, 1 year after they're open. And I got to tell you, like, it tastes like if you've ever tasted a Macallan that was in the 30-plus year range, that's what it tastes like. And it's a Macallan 30 or 35 would probably run you in the $600-700 range. So this is $135, cask strength, unbelievable, probably the best. And what was the beer? So if you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, it would have been the 1050. But yeah, you got me hooked on that coconut.
I'm telling you, man, that's like crack, dude. It's so good.
Legit.
It is hard to stop. I mean, my local spot, Monument Liquors. I every time I go in, I ask, because they don't always have it out on the floor, but sometimes they have it in the back, and I get a 4-pack every time I'm there. And I know it's significantly cheaper for me to pick it up than it is for you, but even at $20, I'd still buy a 4-pack. It's that good. I don't know if we lost Fred or.
I think he's still there. I think it's just migrating.
I'm still there. Just some challenges on the Wi-Fi here for some reason.
Oh, I see. Oh, you moved inside. We can see you again.
I did.
So the question for the group here, Fred, is right now, what is your favorite bourbon, Scotch, and beer?
Oh, wow.
And just to give Fred another minute here, I'll throw a couple of IPAs out there. I recently, just yesterday, I'll get into this in a minute, but because this was a question asked, a heady topper, and actually isn't one of my favorites. It's quite good, but it isn't one of my favorites. Pliny the Elder. I mean, I know it's kind of a unicorn, hard to get, although I'm right down the street, so it's easy for me to get my hands on it. But that's up there as well for me. But go ahead, Fred.
Bourbons are tough because I'm still kind of getting into those, so that's definitely a tough one for me to really choose. Scotches, I go back and forth. We talked about Oban. We talked about Glenmorangie. I do like Bullet quite a bit. I think that one's pretty good. It's tough. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience in that. I've had the Pappy Van Winkle, and I think that's actually pretty damn good. Probably overrated for what the cost is and everything.
Sure. Of course it is.
By far.
one need to mention.
But like I said, the bourbon thing, that's still. I mean, I really just started, going into the bourbons, recently. I did like, I guess it was a old Weller, like an antique, old Weller antique or something like that.
That sounds about right. I think there's an old Weller. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one that I don't remember where I was, but somebody had some in there that was really good. There was one something called Black Maple or Black Maple Hill or something like that I thought was really good. It was a little. I remember it was on the pricier side, and that was pretty good. As far as beers, not a huge beer drinker, so my tastes in beers are probably pretty simple. That I probably wouldn't even mention. I'm a big fan of Hefeweizens. Unfiltered kind of wheat beers. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of what I gravitate towards when I'm out because I find them fairly refreshing.
Yeah, it's funny. I've brewed 3 batches of homebrew beer, and I've been using malt extract. And I'm stepping up my game. I actually found a guy on Craigslist who's getting rid of all of his all grain brewing stuff. So I'm stepping up into all grain,
nice.
which basically means I can kind of brew any kind of beer I want. And I have all kinds of control, which I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but I'm having a lot of fun with it, I'll tell you. And I'm thinking that the first all-grain batch that I brew, given the time of year, it might be a wheat beer. I'm not really sure, but it might be. There's some really good wheats out there. One that I like a lot, I don't know if it's really classified as a wheat beer, but Allagash White is really, really tasty. And that's really, really common too. Has a lot of flavor to it. And a couple of bourbons that I should have mentioned, but I didn't. Blanton's is probably, if I had to say, I should have said Blanton's. I wanted to show off and say Pappy because I was just really happy that I got my hands on a bottle. But Blanton's, it's tough to beat. I mean, there's a reason that it's always so damn popular. There's actually like 3 different kinds of Blanton's, but only one of them you can get in the States. There's like a gold label, and like a green label or something like that you can only get in Europe, and I have to get my hands on those.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. But another one that we talked about here on the show, and it's not really classified as a bourbon, it's Colorado whiskey, but from Stranahan's. That's the stuff coming out of Stranahan's is really, really good too.
So when I was down for the cigar safari, one of the guys brought a bottle of Snowflake to the safari.
Oh, I know who brought it.
Yeah, and I gotta say that was pretty goddamn good. I mean,
do you know what Snowflake it was?
I don't. I don't even think I took a picture of the bottle. I was just happy to get a glass because I mean the likelihood of me getting the Snowflake is like next to nil.
You've got some. I gave some to you.
Oh yeah, pardon me. That's right. So I've been saving that for a special occasion. And
drink it because there's going to be more when we go to IPCPR. So just drink it.
Girl, I'm gonna be all over that. So yeah, no, that was very different from any bourbon or whiskey that I've had. Very interesting, very interesting. I don't know if I'd stand in line for 6 hours to get my hands on a bottle, but I'm glad someone else did for my benefit.
It's funny that you talk about standing in line for 6 hours because I'm working on kind of an opinion piece for my other website, mixedandmash.com, about the unicorn craft beers. Are they really worth it? Because I recently waited in line to get to taste the Pliny the Younger, which they only make once a year for a couple of weeks. It's triple IPA, and maybe it's more of a rant than an opinion piece, but maybe they're one and the same. But Snowflake, just so you know, it comes out of Stranahan's, which is in Colorado, and they do 1 or 2 every year. I'm not sure exactly how many they do, but it's different every time, and it's very limited. It's like 1,800 bottles, I think, and each one has a little handwritten note on there. It's this bottle out of how many, and it was bottled by whoever, and they'll always put some kind of phrase or something on there. But the stuff coming out of Stranahan's is really, really cool. Let me see what else we have here. There was somebody that somehow hasn't smoked Nomad yet. Who was that?
Well, first of all, that person's wrong, and they need immediately go out to their B&M and pick up a 276.
Oh, it was Jeff. Okay, so that was the question, and this is, I guess we could all answer this, but I'll pose it to Fred first, and this is for Jeff Madre, who has been around SigFed for about 6 months now. Very active member. Jeff likes the beer as well, so he's all good in my book. And he hasn't smoked any Nomads yet. He says, which 1 or 2 cigars would be a good introduction to the Nomad line? Now, without really knowing the type of smoker we're talking about, where would you point? I mean, obviously you want to ask those
Yeah.
questions.
Well,
but,
I mean, I'll tell you what. I'll name a mild, medium, and full.
there you go.
So on a
Perfect.
milder side, I would say the Connecticut Fuerte,
Absolutely.
for that category by far. It's certainly a favorite among a lot of smokers, but also I'm honored that it's a favorite among a lot of guys that are in the industry. You know, a great breakfast stick, great for a cup of coffee in the morning. It's a Dominican Connecticut, but there's a little bit of Nicaraguan Lajero just to give it a little bit more flavor. When I did that one, everybody was just kind of like, oh my, I had people in the industry go, oh, don't try to make a Connecticut with something extra, you'll fail, it won't work. And I liked it. All the Connecticut's were too bland for me. So the audience I really got were all the guys that gave up on Connecticut. If you're going for a medium stick, I would say the 8613 seems to be super popular. And then on the full side, if you want, really just a really mature smoke that's got a lot of flavor, I'd say the C276. And I think you can get all of them through SigFed. I mean, maybe they put together a little pack for you, something like that. But that gives you a good range. I mean, right now I have 8 full production cigars blends. I have the Stogie's H-Town Lancero I did, which is a San Andreas Lancero. But I would say those 3 are the ones that kind of give you an idea of the Nomad portfolio.
Yeah, I would definitely echo. I would echo all 3 of those. The one that I would throw in is the Therapy Maduro, and it's it's a little bit different than the cigars that are in your line, but for the price point that you're getting, the quality of smoke, and I know John, you'll probably echo this, and I may have stolen it from you because you're probably going to say that anyway. But that is definitely one to check out. The 8613 it's an interesting cigar because I feel like it's really, really approachable to a lot of different cigar smokers. There's a lot of flavor there, and there's some strength, but it's not going to blow you away. There's some pepper, but it's not going to blow you away. And I don't want to say a middle-of-the-road smoke because it has kind of a negative connotation to it, and there's nothing negative about it. This is a really good cigar. It's the first time I've smoked it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And I think I know Jeff a little bit. I don't know his palate all that much, but Jeff, I would say start with the 8613. And that C276, definitely on the stronger side. And you guys know me, I don't really go for those powerhouse cigars, but that's when it comes to a powerhouse cigar, it's one of my favorites. That was 2014, and I think that was in my top 10.
Yeah, and I don't think the C276 is over the top. I mean, when you start talking about, to me, it's fuller bodied, but not like over the top strength.
Yeah, it's definitely got a kick to it though.
Yeah,
it does have a kick to it. So
that was one of those rare cigars that because we did a group review of that, and across all the mods, everyone scored it quite high. One of the cigars I want to give some love to is the S307, because you don't hear a lot of love. I mean, I got a special place for the S307. It's one of those cigars that's got a particular place in my humidor. As they dwindle down, smoke them more sparingly because I don't know. But they are all in the SigFed store. Definitely check out your local B&M if you can get them from your local B&M. If you can't, SigFed store has everything, including not your father's Connecticut Fuerte.
Yeah, the 307 I love. I mean, it's a medium plus that it was a good cigar when it came out. A year later, Coop actually gave it the #2 aged cigar of the year. It aged really, really well. It's unfortunately not a cigar. I think I have less than 150 boxes of each size. I think there's only like 70 boxes left of the Robusto. It's not a cigar, despite having the tobacco, that I'm going to continue with. And the reason is that because it takes a while to get a brand off the ground, and it was the first full production Nicaraguan that I did, if I go and roll it now, the cigar you go buy from a B&M right now, the S307, or the cigar that you get off SigFed, that was the first Nicaraguan production, so that's back in 2013. If I was to roll them now, it just wouldn't be the same cigar, despite having the same tobaccos in stock. So I'm reallocating that tobacco for other projects now, because I think it would just be an injustice that when the line changes, everybody's like, oh, it's not the same cigar. Well, it is, but you don't have the benefit of a couple years aging. So I still love that cigar, and it still sells very well, and it's one that I wish I could continue. But like I said, I just think it would be an injustice to just roll more of them, put them out, expecting it to be the exact same cigar since it's been aged.
So maybe switching gears a little bit to the IPCPR, and we don't want you to give away the secret sauce before the show, but
you're assuming there is some.
Well, so you've got a full portfolio. I mean, you've got a completely fleshed out portfolio. Are you working on new things for the show, or are you looking to expand the line that you've already got?
Now,
No,
wait, can I interrupt? Can I interrupt, Fred, before
Absolutely.
you answer that question? Because that sounds like some really good cigar chat fodder. And we've talked, and we might be having, and there's a lot of cigar chat style questions, and we're going to have Fred on the show pretty soon. So I don't want to spoil that. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine. We could talk about that next time.
Yes, John, I don't mean to.
No,
Sorry, I didn't
that,
mean to cut you.
absolutely.
But,
That is more of a cigar chat show.
yeah, and we've got a lot of cigar chat style questions here that I'm kind of skipping. And guys, we're hoping to have Fred on maybe very, very soon on cigar chat. So we're going to check some schedules after the show here and see what works. So we'll get to all that stuff here.
Should we switch it up and talk football?
No, not yet. Football, come on. We can talk baseball. I've got a few more questions here, and then we'll get Fred off because he's been.
And that day is good for me, though, just so you know.
Okay, yeah. So okay, well let's just go ahead. Yeah, we're gonna have Fred on Cigar Chat next Thursday. So it's not gonna take too long for us to get to answer these questions. So
hold on to your questions.
yeah, no, that's awesome. And there's questions here. So this is like mainly directed. Bob Dog asked a lot of questions referencing that stuff. Eric Johnson asked a few questions referencing that stuff. So guys, come back with those questions on next Thursday.
Yeah, we have a couple things we can unveil next week. What the heck?
Absolutely. One thing I want to ask, that guitar that's just up over your shoulder, it looks like it has a lot of autographs on it. Who signed that?
Which one are you looking at?
There's that white one up there.
Okay, the white
one. Like a Stratocaster.
The white one is Money Money Boss Tones. The black one is Counting Crows, and the other one is Dave Matthews Band.
Oh wow! I'm
and I don't play guitar. So
you don't play. You just.
I don't. I try, but I'm. No, it's just not happening.
It's just not happening. Counting Crows story, and why can't I think of the lead singer's name? Adam. Starts with a D. It's not Durst.
No.
It's Adam something. Anyway, he and it's funny. Everybody who's clicked on to see Tracy Drew's questions is just gonna have to wait. He's from the Bay Area. He actually went. I don't know if he went to Cal or if he just grew up in Berkeley. But when I worked at UC Berkeley from 2003 to 2007 in the athletic department, so my office was right there in the football stadium, and he was Adam Duritz. Maybe that's it. It's Adam something. Anyway, he was a big fan of Cal women's basketball. And I would always, whenever we had an event, a fundraising event, he was always there. He would show up to Cal women's basketball games. There'd be 1,500 people in the stands, and there he is with his dreadlocks, and I got a chance to chat with him a few times. He was kind of a reserved guy, but
that would be Duritz. You're right.
It's Duritz, yeah, Adam Duritz, yeah. And that takes me back to high school, man, because that was when Mr. Jones came out. That was
high school. Okay, great. Now you're really aging me. Thank you so much for that.
Well, come on. I mean, I graduated in '95, so.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's all good. You still have a better hairline than I do, so it's okay.
I felt like I should have wore a hat today.
Yeah. The beanie shows up.
I was not given the dress code.
No, the beanie comes out every week, and actually, my hair is almost as long as yours now.
Is it really?
Yeah, I've been growing it out for about 2 years. Once it's long enough, I'm gonna cut it and donate it to make some wigs for kids. So
very cool.
But it's getting to the point where I can't. I think yours is probably more manageable than mine. Mine kind of does this. And
I don't have that.
I have to kind of pull it back and put it in a little I don't know, bun or whatever. So anyway, like I said before, next time you see a guy with a man bun, don't judge him. He might be growing out his hair to donate it to kids with cancer. You never know.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Good. Anyway, to move on to Tracy Drew's question here, this is for the question for the group. When you're smoking, when you're pairing, do you pair a full-bodied smoke with a stout and a lighter beer with a mild cigar, or vice versa? And Fred, thanks for the humor every day on Facebook. So I'll start with John on that one. So like. We've talked about this before. I mean,
absolutely.
You kind of pair a little bit strength with strength, but what's your philosophy?
No, I think that's absolutely the right philosophy. And I mean, talking as a very, very amateur blender, What I've learned about cigar blending is kind of the same about pairing, is that you do have to match strength with strength. If you take a Hefeweizen and you pair it with the fullest of the full body Maduro, then you're not going to taste the beer. It's just going to taste like water, because the cigar is going to run over all the flavor nuances of the beer, and you really do have to match strength with strength. I mean, we talk about comparative versus contrasting versus complementary, and part of that is matching strength with strength. Now, sometimes you can get a little fast and loose, but in general, you really do have to match strength with strength. And Fred, I'm sure, can talk way more about tobacco, but if you were to take a really strong Ligero and put it on a very light wrapper, it's going to blow the wrapper out. And the same is true when you're pairing. If you really do have to match strength for strength. So if you're going to pair a really strong stout, you're going to have to pair a full-bodied cigar. And I think that's where something like the 8613, which I would classify as a medium plus, and that gives you a lot more freedom for pairing, because in that category you've got way more freedom to pair with ports, with whiskeys, with beers, versus something that's very strong, which does limit your pairing capability. So that's kind of my approach to pairing anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with the bulk of that. It's one thing I'll say about pairing, and this is probably the biggest thing that I've learned since, through 60, how many episodes? 63 episodes of this show, is try things out, because you never know. Sometimes, and I don't know how many times we could say this, John, is where we thought our best pairing going into the night ended up being our least favorite. And I'll always go back to the show where I really thought that ginger ale was going to pair well, and it really didn't.
Not a good pairing.
No, it was bad times, man. And so you just never know. Like we talked about IPAs, we thought that was going to be horrible, and they ended up pairing really well with that particular cigar that we paired them with that time. So you're definitely on the right track when you say like a full-bodied smoke with a stout, or with like a porter or a heavier beer, an old ale or strong ale, something like that. A double or a triple, or whatever you want to get into, depends on what you like in beer. And a mild cigar with a lighter beer, or when you start talking about spirits, you can say the same thing. But play around with it. That's kind of the fun part for me. So
yeah, I think I'm more. It's the same way I approach blending as I probably do in the pairings. I am much more about complementary than I am contrast. You could blend a super strong cigar, but and you could have a crappy blend and no one would know. Because if you just went for strength and nothing else, then it hides a lot. It's like putting hot sauce on something that you just can't taste the food anymore. So I'm much more about looking complementary. The C276, which is probably the most full-bodied cigar I have in the portfolio. My goal was to take that up, and I wanted full body, but it was to take it up farther and farther in strength until such time that I lost the lesser flavors, and then I had to back the strength back down. But I wanted to push it as far as I could, and it's some of the cigars that I really, really like, and I'm not comparing it to by any means. But if you look at like a Padron, I think that like a Padron 64, this is something that has lots of flavor. It's got some strength, but you don't lose the subtle flavors along the way. I think that, to me, I've never really been successful in taking a pairing and taking a mild against a full liquor of some sort, or vice versa. I think they have to play with each other. Now, sometimes when you're in the medium wheelhouse, that to me is where the magic happens. You can work either way, and that's where you really get subtleties. On the milder liquors and stuff like that, I tend to gravitate more to the Dominican line. Because you have the floral notes and stuff that can play off some of the milder liquors and single malts much more than you can the strong ones. But to me, it's all about complementary.
Yeah, when you guys are talking about Glenmorangie, and I think of just kind of the standard Glenmorangie with the orange label, $25 a bottle or whatever it is, that your original Dominican, to me, sounds like that would be a really nice pairing. I haven't done that before.
Yeah,
but
anything in the medium wheelhouse really becomes a good pairing for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tracy, thanks for the question. But yeah, just play around with stuff, and you're on the right track with strength for strength, and I don't want to say weakness for weakness, but lesser strength with lesser strength, I guess, is a way to put it. But that definitely seems like the right way to go. The rest of these questions, there's one question. This one's actually for me, and it's from Tracy, and I'll address it because I did have the Heady Topper from Alchemist in Vermont, and that is when you go to Beer Advocate or Rate Beer or whatever. It's always one of the top beers. It's always right up there with Pliny and like Zombie Dust and things like that. It's a double IPA. It's an East Coast IPA, so it's different than what we get out here on the West Coast. I had my first one yesterday, and Tracy wanted to know how it was. I really liked it, but it's funny, and I did a little video review of the Pliny the Younger, which I'm going to post up on Mixed and Matched here pretty soon. When you have something, when there's that unicorn of any kind, it could be a bourbon, it could be a cigar, it could be wine, it could be anything. When you first taste it, you're always going to be let down a little bit because it's never going to be as good as you thought it was going to be.
It's like Star Wars.
Exactly. We could start talking about Star Wars. What did you think of? Well,
what did you think of the new one?
We'll talk about episode 7 here in a minute. We'll get there. But it's really good. Is it worth the hype and like chasing it around? Again, I'm working on a piece for that, Tracy. I'll send you the link for that. But I think it was really, really good. And oddly enough, for an IPA, as it warmed up, I got a lot more flavor from it, and I found it to be a lot more enjoyable as it got not quite room temperature, but closer. Usually with IPAs, you want them pretty cold. But as it warmed up a little bit, it opened up, and there was a lot more fruity notes. Has a real malty backbone to it. Definitely different from a West Coast IPA, but I did enjoy it. Now, on to more important things. Episode 7. How many times did you see it?
I saw it once.
Just once?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Wow.
John, how many times did you see it?
I've seen it twice. I plan on seeing it at least one more time before it goes out of the theater. And I'm
Is it still in the theater?
Of course it's still in the theater. The thing is making money hand over fist.
It comes out on Blu-ray in like a week.
It's still in the theater.
I just figured at this point, because I got back from Nicaragua and then I was in DR.
You're running.
I saw the date, the release date, so I thought, well, I'll just wait for the DVD at this point and maybe look at it with a different light this time.
Yeah, it's it's funny. I talk about. I don't know if I referenced that specifically in the video review that I did for the Pliny the Younger, but it's my wife, like, the first thing she did. We were actually down in LA when we watched it the first night, and there was me and my buddy who I've known the guy since kindergarten. He was the best man at my wedding, and we're kind of Star Wars geeks, right? And so we're just totally geeked out about everything. Dana's a fan in the sense that she kind of has to be because I am, but she likes it a little bit more than that. And then the other, my buddy brought a friend with him, and she had never seen any Star Wars at all. So we got all kinds of different feedback about the film. I really liked it. Now, is it a complete and total ripoff of the first one? Kinda, but I'm okay with that. I'm kind of okay with that. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next few movies, and like I feel like I'm going to get a new Star Wars movie every year for the rest of my life, and that makes me kind of happy.
I think I'm reserving judgment until I see the next one, how I ultimately feel the first one, because it set up some things. I felt they completely ripped off the first one. I mean, to the point that, the only way you're going to get rid of the Death Star is if you get rid of this thing on the planet first. And, granted, that was where, sucking the sun and all the other stuff. But, I mean, so instead of a shield, it was this. And they also, look, I'm a big sci-fi guy. And I will suspend disbelief and go, look, as long as you stick to your own rules, I'm okay with it. So even though they kind of ripped off the first one, I was like, okay, I'll go with that. It was great to see some of the characters again. I mean, with the thing with Harrison Ford, if you haven't seen the movie by now, then I don't think we're giving away spoilers. Spoiler alert, turn it off. But I mean, I'm like, oh man, why couldn't it have been Leia? Basically,
you saw it coming, though, right? I mean,
I did. I'm not sure that's entirely over yet, but we'll see.
Fair enough.
And maybe that's just me hoping. But where it started to lose me was basically with the main character, with the girl. Her almost unprecedented ability that goes against every aspect of the movies, the level of training and everything else. To the final sequences of her fight to a person that had supposedly been well trained, and they didn't justify the battle being somewhat equal along the way as to why her skill set would be that good. I was actually waiting for the other guy to be the Jedi, which I thought would have been a neat twist, and that's where I was hoping they were going at the very end in that moment. I can't remember the guy's name, the guy that was that was originally the Stormtrooper.
Yeah, it's Finn.
Finn. I actually was looking for the twist to be Finn was the one with the skill.
And I think they set it up that way, though.
Well, they did, but then
With
they
what you
really
were
went
seeing.
away from it with her. So what really turned it off for me a little bit was the fact that her skill set was so great without the training. Again, I'm only going by the rules that you've set in the previous movies.
Sure. Yeah.
So can I be undone knowing that this is a trilogy, knowing that they're setting up other things? I can, which is why I'll reserve ultimate judgment on the first one. Until the end, but I enjoyed it because I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I'm a big fan of the sci-fi stuff. Did it wow me? Other than the visual effects, which were phenomenal, and I was a little turned off by the storyline being. I mean, it's like, wow, you were just, okay, here's another droid. Okay, here's how you're gonna have to take down the. I mean, it's like, okay, you just really fell into your formula a little bit too much.
I agree with a lot of that. I don't know if anybody even cares anymore. I mean, people are still watching, so that's good. But I felt like they borrowed a lot from the original. I felt like they tweaked it enough and made it different enough to definitely generate some interest, moving forward for me. But I'm one of those guys that I went into it wanting to like it. I think we all did. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to find stuff to not like about it, and I know there's a lot of people who are like that, which is whatever. If that's how you want to live your life, that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah.
So let me ask you guys this, since we're talking about it. So this question, this is my question. Fred, what would you say would be your top 3 sci-fi movies?
Oh.
I mean, you don't have to rank them 1 to 3, but top 3 sci-fi movies off the top of your head.
Well, I mean, Empire would be there as far as top 3.
Yeah.
I would probably say I thought Aliens, the second one, and the reason, and I think John, I think you and I probably covered movies pretty extensively when you were down here, but Aliens, I thought, I mean, Sigourney Weaver was just badass, and then I also thought that, the first one, you went through 3/4 of the movie without seeing the alien, so. The first Alien really set up the second one because now you knew what to be afraid of, and I thought the second one was absolutely phenomenal. The third movie, it's tough to choose because there's a lot that fall on the cusp there. I thought the premise and I thought the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when I saw it a long time ago, I thought was a neat premise the way it all went down. And I thought the acting was really good in it. And then I just got goofy ones that I just happen to enjoy that go in that genre. But those would probably be the ones I'd say out of the gate. What
about you, Rob?
I would agree. I mean, Empire is my favorite. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to do for you. And I would say Aliens was on my list too. And I mean, you could go easy and say Terminator 2 because Aliens and Terminator 2 are fantastic films. One that sticks with me from my childhood, it didn't age very well, but I really liked the story and the way that it was told, was Enemy Mine. If you've ever seen that. With Lou Gossett Jr. and
that's a great movie.
It's a great movie, and that's the kind of movie that I wish that they would go back and do again. Because if you could, I think that movie could, like, don't make remake. Ghostbusters doesn't need a reboot. It doesn't. It just doesn't. That movie aged really well. You could go watch the original Ghostbusters.
Enemy Mine was so much about just 2 people.
Yeah.
And it was really more a story of them getting along and figuring it out, well beyond the sci-fi aspect of it.
Yeah, there was a little more depth maybe.
Absolutely.
There's a couple more that I like, and the name of this movie is escaping me. I think it's Oblivion with Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Oh, good premise.
I thought that was really well done. That movie kind of surprised me. And there's a lot of other ones out there.
What's the Bruce Willis one? Fifth Element.
Fifth Element.
I enjoy that one a lot. I mean, it's one that, when you're cruising through cable and it comes on, you're like, oh, I'll watch that.
Yeah.
It's a little hokey to say, but it's still a sci-fi genre, but it's a little hokey as far as that's concerned. But I enjoyed the story. Blade Runner. Blade Runner, yeah.
With a sequel coming out soon, from what I understand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they're making another Indiana Jones too in 2019.
Yeah, that's they
the last one was god awful, so hopefully.
No, and I knew some people in the industry, and I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently there were 2 scripts. I think John and I talked about this as well, but supposedly there was another script that had to do with Atlantis, and I think I would have rather gone that route than the aliens at the end there. But I mean, I'm a huge. I mean, if you were to say, hey, what's your top 5 movies? Raiders of the Lost Ark was clearly not sci-fi, obviously, but clearly was one of my top 5 movies. Just for a roller coaster ride that I don't think anybody other than Harrison Ford could have pulled that off.
Absolutely. A couple more sci-fis that I'll rattle off here, and now I've just lost them all. How did that happen? We talked about Blade Runner. And there was Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Super 8, I thought was really, really good.
Super 8 was good. If you're going to say Close Encounters, then I'm going to say the one that I just forgot. Oh, 2010: Space Odyssey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The sequel. 2001 was good, but I thought 2000.
Oh, really? Okay. I was just thinking 2001. I don't know if I've ever seen 2010.
Richard Dreyfuss goes up there. Again, that's another movie set up well from the previous movie.
Huh. Interesting. I'll have to watch that. And there was one more that I'm going to remember as soon as we start talking about something else.
John, are we missing anything?
No, I think we hit on all the ones that kind of.
Oh, I got it.
Go.
Sorry. Looper.
Oh yeah, Looper was really well done.
I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
It was a cool concept, and I liked it. So there you go. That was it.
Okay, so if you say Looper, though, can I throw in Inception?
Inception, I've seen it a few times. I don't know if I get it, man. It's.
I like it.
No,
I
Inception.
More than once.
Sorry, I was thinking
Interstellar. I had to see it more than once because it's a pretty heavy movie, but I liked it.
I checked that. Inception, I did like. It was Interstellar is what I was thinking. It was the one that I didn't.
Oh yeah.
But Inception was really cool, and I love the fact that the end of that film is totally left up to your interpretation.
Okay, so most popular worst sci-fi movie that you can think of that was popular.
Oh, that was popular. Oh, that was the worst.
What's the
Avatar.
With Will Smith, it was like 2000.
After Earth.
Earth.
No, I'm gonna pull it up.
Oh, you know what was another decent one was with Denzel Washington, the post-apocalyptic one, Book of Eli. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
I think my worst would have to be Sandra Bullock's space movie.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I hated it.
It was.
It was so inconceivable. I mean, she literally jumps from one station over to the other subspace station that is the equivalent of leaving Philadelphia and landing in L.A. Real distance-wise. I mean,
but it's space, so you go so much faster, right?
No, it's not. No.
Doesn't work that way.
No. And she somehow lands successfully. Independence
Day being incredibly popular, just overall not. It was very paint by numbers sci-fi show.
You go.
I liked it.
Deep Impact was the lesser of the two.
Well, now you're getting into the Meteor movies, which I'd have to at least give a kudos to Armageddon.
Yeah,
just because of the script. Yeah, the characters in that are great.
Yeah, they did a decent job with that, but we're kind of off the rails at this point.
We are totally off the rails. I have that effect on some shows.
No, it's fun. It's fun, man. I've still got a little bit of cigar to go, so I'm good.
We embrace that.
I'm trying to think of bad.
There's probably a million of them that we haven't really thought of. Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid, Underground Dwellers. That's before your time, Robbie. Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah, those are always fun. Minority Report I thought was pretty decent.
Yeah.
From back in the day. They tried to make a TV show out of it that didn't work, but I thought that was... I like the concept, maybe the concept more than the film, but...
Do we have anybody left in the chat room? Has everybody left us now?
No, everybody's still watching somehow.
Is it just the movie So have them rattle off. What are we missing? The best sci-fi in the chat room.
Yeah,
Just
guys,
tell us
chime in.
what's the best sci-fi movie that we haven't mentioned yet.
All right, John, you jump in. I'll check out the chat room.
So, Fred will back me up on this. The sci-fi horror that Kurt Russell did, and then they did a remake of it, which was
Escape from L.A.?
Escape from L.A., Escape from
no,
Alcatraz? Or no, Escape from New York.
both excellent, but not sci-fi. I'm gonna look through IMDb here because The Thing. The Thing.
Oh, John Carpenter's movie.
John Carpenter's The Thing was amazing, and they sort of did a second The Thing movie, which was kind of an homage to the original The Thing, but it didn't have the same feel. The Thing was like this, and back in '82, this bridge between horror and sci-fi, which was, Alien certainly did it, but
it was really short.
It was really short, but it evolved. It moved the movie genres into this where you could do sci-fi horror and not be all horror and not be all sci-fi. I thought that was a great movie.
Well, that was the whole Predator series that became Aliens versus Predator and all the other stuff.
Yeah. The original Predator I enjoyed. Beyond that, I don't know. I think I saw it. Get to the chopper. I didn't see anything beyond that. That was pretty much it for me. You guys you're taking me back to, I don't know. What about Sharknado? A little Sharknado?
Powerful movie.
Of that genre, the only one I've ever watched, my wife and I watched Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus.
I haven't seen that. It's on Netflix. I haven't pulled the trigger on that one.
It's oddly entertaining. And it shouldn't be. But, sometimes it's fun if you sit down and you're just like, look, I want to watch a crap movie, and you're just in the mood to make fun of it, it's a lot of fun. It's a good drinking game movie.
Oh, well, if you want a fun sci-fi movie, what was the one last year? The foursome in space, the raccoons, the one character, Bradley Cooper does the raccoon voice.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Totally enjoyable start to finish movie.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And you don't have, it's part of that Marvel enterprise, but you don't have to watch the rest of the movies to get that. And I love that they had Howard the Duck at the end.
Yeah.
Speaking of a crap movie.
Speaking of.
Ouch, that one was rough. Here's a question for the group. What's your biggest guilty pleasure movie? That's just that you love, it's crap, but you love it anyway. And you usually can't find anybody to watch it with you. It doesn't have to be sci-fi. It can be anything.
I think for me, and I don't think it's crap, but the movie that every time it comes on the TV show, on the movie channel, that I can't not watch is True Lies.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't that bad. Jamie Lee Curtis was kind of hot in that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, we're in the After Dark segment. Jamie Lee Curtis had a great rack.
Forgot about it.
Great rap.
I mean, what was she at that time? She must have been in like young 50s, and she was like unbelievable.
Go back to Trading Places, man. Whew, she had a great rack. God bless her. So guilty pleasure movies. Fred, you got one?
I don't know if it counts. I mean, I think Armageddon. That's one of those ones that everybody's like, really, Armageddon? But I just think it's hysterical. I just think the lines in that movie when they're negotiating, and the guy wants to stay in the White House and all the other stuff. I just think it's got a lot of good lines in that movie, and I would probably say that's one of the guilty pleasure ones.
Bring back
Jeff in the chat room just nailed it. Groundhog Day. No, because Groundhog Day was the vehicle that took him from being a comedic actor, because he'd done Ghostbusters and everyone thought he was kind of a clown, to a more serious actor. And it was, you go back and watch Groundhog Day and it's kind of silly, but there's a lot of deep thematic elements to it, which I think, I'm sure I've watched that movie 30, 40 times. But it's really, really interesting. There's it's like RoboCop, where initially you watch RoboCop and you're like, yeah, to shoot 'em up, but there's so much depth to that movie, and the more you watch it, the more you get it.
So I've never really, I don't know why I'm going to admit this. I've got two guilty pleasure movies. One is Cocktail with Tom Cruise. and a young
And
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth Shue.
who she was hot.
Gotta go. See
Forget
ya.
about it.
She
Yeah.
was hot too.
You're cutting out.
Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. Are you ready?
It gets worse.
And my wife, if this movie is ever on TV, I will put it on. It doesn't matter what part of the film it is. And my wife is like, dude, really? Come on, you need to change it. You ready for this? Titanic. Every time it's on, I have to stop and watch Titanic.
I'm so sad.
I just knew. Right when that movie started, I just knew something bad was going to happen.
Oh, every time. It's I don't know what it is, but there's something about that particular movie. And I'm man enough to say it. My wife doesn't even want to watch Titanic. And
I'm just saying, collect the insurance money, keep the necklace.
Yeah.
If I give our audience any advice, keep the necklace, collect the insurance money.
That's insurance fraud. So you're telling, just to be clear, we at Cigar Federation and sharing our pairings do not condone, nor do we suggest that you commit insurance fraud.
We do not. But
Duly noted.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if that matters, but I figured I'd say it. But yeah, that's it. It's out there. It's out there now. Yep. Titanic.
I can't unlearn that about you.
No, it's there. It's there forever. I actually have a tattoo, and I'll never show it to you guys. No,
what?
Really, I don't. I don't have a Titanic tattoo.
Oh,
wow. That almost changed the shape of SOP going forward forever.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's there's two other movies when they're on, but these aren't guilty pleasures because these movies are pretty awesome. If they're on, I will stop and put them on no matter where it is in the film. Is Shawshank Redemption and Braveheart. But those are awesome movies.
Well, Shawshank Redemption is my #1 favorite movie.
It's almost a perfect film, right?
It was, well, and I was in college. I was like first year of college. I thought I wanted to be a film student. It was the first movie that I'd ever watch after watching hundreds of movies that we had to watch. We went to the theater. I went to the theater and watched that. It's the first movie that I ever walked out of that I wanted to walk back in immediately and hear it again. It was like your grandfather telling you a really cool story.
Yeah.
Arguably, to me, it's always my #1 film.
Yeah, it's right up there for me too. Yeah, when you start talking about like film school and stuff, I never took any film classes, and I don't profess to be a film expert by any means. But I have an affinity for black and white, and I'm a big fan of Hitchcock. But there was one movie that we watched, and it was a silent film with God, now I can't think of the guy's name. The main silent film guy. He had the little mustache.
Charlie Chaplin?
Chaplin, thank you. Why I couldn't think of his name, but City Lights. If you've never watched a silent film before, go watch City Lights, because within the first 3 minutes you forget that nobody's talking. That's how well done. I think that's almost a perfect film too. But those are, as far as quality of the film and just being able to get sucked right in, that's right up there with it.
If you want to go to a throwback, unusual sci-fi movie that a lot of people haven't seen, Dark City.
Great call.
I mean, you look at something like The Matrix, and you go, I mean, The Matrix is an amazing movie, but you can see how much of The Matrix borrowed from Dark City.
Yeah, it's funny, man. That's a movie that it wasn't all that well done, and there was no real name actors in it.
Jennifer Connelly.
That's a good one. That's a good
Jennifer
one.
Connelly, but before nobody. And, I mean, there was a brief window where people cared about Jennifer Connelly, and this was before that.
And if you're gonna go to obscure ones though that probably weren't on anybody's radar, but great storyline, great acting, I would throw Gattaca in that movie. I mean, that's a great movie.
That's Ethan Hawke was in that, right?
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And there's a scene in there that has to do with him and his brother always swimming out into the lake, and there's a scene in there when the brother doesn't understand why he's better because one's genetically made, one's not, and to me that was just a movie that I was just absolutely glued to.
I feel like that scene is almost and I talk about Glengarry Glen Ross as like a archetype for sales, and for me that scene in Gattaca was like an archetype for life, and he's like telling his brother why he can beat him, and I mean it sounds kind of
make me go watch it.
Yeah, it's such an aha moment where you go, wow, like that's so deep. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I'll have to check it out.
You haven't
highly
seen
recommend.
Gattaca? Oh, you gotta
Recommend.
go watch it tonight.
So instead of stopping on Titanic, go fire up Gattaca.
I'm not even ashamed of it, man. I'm gonna wear a
Yeah, I
Titanic
know.
T-shirt to IPCPR this year.
Oh, wow.
Awkward.
Oh.
So I'm gonna pull it back. I'm gonna talk, before we wrap it up, because this is probably the longest SOP show we've ever had. Thank you very much, Fred. So the great thing about IPCPR this year is, of course, we've reorganized our schedule, and I think I might have lost Fred there, but we've reorganized our schedule, so we're going to have the opportunity now to spend some time after the show and actually, hang out with all the manufacturers and spend time after the show instead of just, wandering the streets of New Orleans at 2:30 in the morning for beer, potentially getting stabbed.
Nice, because I want in on some of the stockpile you're bringing down here. I keep hearing all these liquors are going to show up, so I know somebody that has cigars.
It's going to happen.
Could happen.
It's going to happen.
Ask Rob, the box that I brought down for New Orleans.
Yeah, John. Well,
we will make that happen.
Yeah, let's do it. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's wrap it up. We're going on 2 hours.
There we go. So on that note, thanks everyone for all you crazy people who are still tuning in live. I don't know what you're thinking, but thank you very much for tuning in live. All our podcast listeners who are undoubtedly on their second trip home, because it's a very long show. Thank you very much. Thanks, Fred. Great having you on. We'll see you next week on Cigar Chat. You've got to tune in. Get all your Weasel questions in, because that'll be the show to get your Weasel questions in. And as what we say on Sharing Our Pairings, drink better, but drink less.